Under One Roof MTL, hosted by Robyn Flynn, featuring mortgage brokers Fred and Martin and real estate expert LJ Aguinaga. Presented by Fred and Martin Mortgages and LJ Realties.
Good afternoon, Montreal. Welcome to Under One Roof MTL, where we're demystifying home ownership one episode at a time. I'm your host, Robyn Flynn, and I am with Fred and Martin, Fred Pichette, Martin Spalding, and LJ Aguinaga of LJ Realties. Hey guys, it's show number 2.
Let's do it.
Good afternoon.
So exciting. I'm very jealous of you guys because you don't live on the South Shore. Mercier Bridge was not fun this morning. So if you're still stuck on the Mercier, my thoughts are with you. It was a bit of a tough go. But I'm very happy that I live on the South Shore. I have to say I'm very pleased with my house. When I was looking to buy a property with my husband, we had the option of a condo, 700 square feet in NDG, or our 1,200 square foot home with a huge backyard in Chateauguay. And I think we made the right choice. What do you guys think?
The Flynn Palace.
The Flynn Palace. We call it, my husband's last name is Landsman, so we call it the Flinnsman abode. We combine our names.
Has a nice ring to it.
Exactly. It sounds great. So if you want to join in on the show, you absolutely can. You can give us a call at 514-790-0800, or you can text in at 514-800. We are here to answer any of your questions pertaining to home ownership, mortgages, renting, anything to do with housing. So give us a call, 514-790-0800. We'll do our best to answer your questions. And since we come off the back of the trivia show, we think it's fun to start the show with a trivia question of our own. So if you think you know the answer, please get in touch, 514-800. This week's question: what is a collateral charge mortgage? 514-800 if you think you know the answer. We will get to the answer a little later in the show. But let's start with what's in the news this week. Mike Holmes, it's a name that we all know if you've watched HGTV for any amount of time. But just because Mike Holmes endorses a construction project doesn't mean you should forego your inspection. And I can't believe I even need to say that. Are people seriously foregoing an inspection just because Mike Holmes put a stamp of approval on a project?
So to be honest, a lot of time with new construction buildings, people do more of a quick evaluation. They'll come by, they'll take a quick look, and they won't actually have a formal inspection of the entire property. Whenever you throw a star's name at something, people kind of even just trust it more. Obviously, we're using that star power to get that trust and that buy-in. And in this case, I mean, definitely buyer beware.
So, okay.
But if you're gonna drop $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 on a property, spend the $500, $600, $700 to have it inspected, even if it comes from a reputable constructor, even if it's endorsed by a big time celebrity, and there are always 4 things that you have to look for: foundation, roof, electrical, and plumbing. And I include HVAC in that, because you don't want to end up buying this house, moving in, and all of a sudden the furnace doesn't work. Mm-hmm. There's a crack in the foundation. The roof is leaking. Spend the money and have it inspected.
But what does this have to do with Mike Holmes? So you specifically...
Well, because Mike Holmes' reputation was built on, he used to go in after a house was renovated and he would make it right. Mm-hmm. So you go, he's going to make it right. So if he's going to endorse a development property, the houses will be built right. So now 3 of the houses are being forced to be tear down because of alleged defects. So when you go into a property that's endorsed by Mike Holmes, you assume that they've done their due diligence because his brand's on the line as well.
What can I say about that, Martin, is even though Mike Holmes recommend that construction, anything I think you do in life, you have to do your own due diligence. You know, either a friend recommend you to do this investment or a relative. I always encourage people to, make some research, make your due diligence. Nowadays, you can have access to a lot of good information online, and also you could avoid probably that investing a lot of money, a project that you really care and you wanted that property for your family. I don't think it's the right thing to do, not doing your due diligence.
If you want to join in on the conversation, you can give us a call at 514-790-0800. Scott is in St. Hippolyte. Hey, Scott, how's it going?
How's everything going with y'all?
Pretty good, pretty good. Did you have a question for the guys today?
Yes, well, a general question for for the panel, I guess, as it were. So the wife and I, a couple years ago, we built our home, and we built it LEED and Novo Klima. Now, generally speaking, that it adds on about a 40% building cost to it. But like, I want to know when do you think, or if you think the market is going to correct for added value to ecologic homes versus regular homes? Because right now, lenders don't look at ecologic homes as anything more than a home that costs 40% more to build.
LJ, you want to field that one?
Yeah. So congratulations on building your home. It sounds like you had an awesome project. It's great that you've gone down the road of going for LEED certified Novo Klima. I think we're still a little whiles away, to be honest. It's probably going to be at least 5, if not 10 years when we see really the changes in oil, when we actually get closer to the carbon neutral as a whole, as a country even, that we're going to start seeing people buy into this more. So unfortunately, from a financial perspective, I don't think we're quite there yet. I don't think it's going to be there even for the next little while. But like everything, people are going to start shifting in that direction, and we're going to see it pay dividends for you in the long run.
Thanks for the call, Scott. 514-790-0800 if you have a question for Fred Pichette, Martin Spalding from Fred and Martin Mortgages, or for LJ Aguinaga from LJ Realties. We are here with you until 1 p.m. This is Under One Roof MTL on CJD 800. I saw the story in the news this week that 2 Quebec realtors were found guilty of submitting bogus offers. So if you're choosing a real estate agent to work with, what can you do to avoid a mess like this, to know that you're working with somebody who is reputable and trustworthy?
The first thing always is get references, right? So whether it's on their Google page, on their Facebook, etc., hopefully you know somebody who maybe have worked with them in the past. You always want to interview at least 3 real estate brokers, so you know that you have a different feel, a different vibe with different people. You want to see how you connect with them, and ask them how many transactions they did in the last year, what type of transactions, in what areas. And again, in this case, obviously you had 2 very successful realtors that could have answered a lot of those questions very well, but at a certain point it comes down to the trust, and kind of you could tell that some things maybe were going on in the background, especially some of the things you saw on the TV show, maybe some of the stuff that you heard, obviously, and now obviously things that have been confirmed. But do your due diligence, like Fred said earlier today.
Yeah, but LJ, you agree that it could be very difficult to find that doing such a thing of boogie offer, it's crazy.
Well, because there's been an example in the mortgage business where people have been sending in fake documents. There was a big controversy out west where there were some mortgage brokers actually submitting fake documents to get loans for their clients. So the lenders are very conscious of that and the due diligence on their end. So don't try to send us a fake document because it's not going to get through.
We also like to include a real estate market update. There's a lot of talk right now about the market stabilizing. What do you think, LJ? Are we heading in that direction?
I think we've gone past stabilization, to be honest. In Montreal in particular, I'd say that we're in a buyer's market out there. That's what we're seeing, and I know the statistics don't line up with that, but when we're actually on the road and visiting properties and making offers, buyers have the leverage. We've been able to negotiate prices down for the last couple of weeks. I saw 2 multiple offer situations this past week where we had 4 buyers on one property, and it went for asking. Nobody bid over asking out of 4 offers, and the same thing on another one. 3 offers in that situation. 2 out of the 3 offers were all below, and again, we had one that was at asking again. So buyers are being a lot more conservative in their approach, and they're taking their time and not really jumping at anything like crazy.
I spoke to one realtor, LJ. Tell me if I'm wrong, but it depends on where it's located, the property. Because one of my realtor that I spoke to bet on the property in the West Island, and it was like 4 or 5 offers. And it was a renovated property, and she told me that it went up for more than the asking price. Like, well, what do you have to say about that?
I think that obviously the market, if we talk about the greater Montreal area, there's always going to be different pockets. There's always going to be different situations. It comes down to pricing strategy as well. If I price a property $50,000 below what I think it's truly worth, I'm going to create buzz. I'm going to get multiple offers. But as a whole, if we're looking at properties that are priced fairly, we're seeing that people aren't jumping or going crazy over them. And again, a turnkey property in the West Island that somebody can literally just purchase, put a mortgage on, and be ready to live in is a little bit different. Properties that still need a little bit of work, nothing crazy, but that aren't turnkey necessarily, might not go in the same direction.
Under One Roof MTL, hosted by Robyn Flynn, featuring mortgage brokers Fred and Martin and real estate expert LJ Aguinaga. Presented by Fred and Martin Mortgages and LJ Realties.
This is your lingo lexicon on Under One Roof MTL. Equity, the difference between the market value of a property and the outstanding mortgage balance. As the homeowner pays off the mortgage, their equity in the property increases. For example, if you purchase a property for $300,000 with a down payment of $60,000, your mortgage would be $240,000. Let's say you make all your payments for 2 years, bringing the principal amount owed down to $230,000. If that property is now worth $400,000, your equity in it would be $170,000. This has been Lingo Lexicon on Under One Roof MTL. Has Canada's current economic situation turned into the perfect storm for homeowners and investors? And if so, how is this perfect storm impacting interest rates and the real estate market? Patrick Lalonde is Business Development Manager at Pentor Finance, and he joins us now. Hi, Patrick. Thanks for being here.
Pleasure to be with you this morning, actually.
Yeah. So first thing I want to know is what exactly is Pentor Finance? What does your firm do?
So we do private lending, so private mortgage lending. So we're a short-term solution, and the actual economic situation that you just described put us in a position where we're very busy those days. Lots of Canadians need help. Lots of Canadian cannot make it due to the high interest rate. So rate rise quite importantly lately. On top of that, all the inflation add up to the debt growth. For a lot of families, so a lot of people are just about to lose their homes, or we're there to help by providing short-term mortgage solutions.
You coined the expression "la tempête parfaite," the perfect storm. Can you take us back to March 2020 and bring us forward? And why do you think that we have now gone through the perfect storm?
Martin, that's a very good point, actually. So if we're going back in March 2020, we locked down the entire province. Actually, it's the entire world who's been locked down for several times. So economy was going nowhere at a certain point. Market stock were going down drastically. Bank of Canada, accordingly with the federal government, to sustain that economy, dropped down the interest rate like very prompt. To 1/4 of a point. So that was to maintain the economy as is. Now, here's what happened. You just created a monster without knowing, and they did what they had to do. I'm not criticizing, don't get me wrong. So what happened is, by lowering the interest rate, you just creating more people, or actually encouraging more people to spend more money. Money's cheap. So you're borrowing money at 1/4 of a point. So the impact of that was we were confined at home. We decided to renovate properties. We decided to buy new properties. There was a shortage of property out there. So people were putting 2, 3, 4 offers. They were refused. At one point, you hit the jackpot, your offer goes through, it's accepted, but without any inspection, tons of condition. So you're buying over and above your budget. You don't know exactly what you're buying. So now, fast forward to 2022, 2023, inflation started to show up. So to sort of limit that inflation, because at one point it was increasing promptly, we went up to 8.1%, if I'm not mistaken, near Quebec. Bank of Canada decided to raise the interest rate to slow down the economy. So that had the impact of people couldn't make it no more. So you created inflation by trying to save the economy back in 2020, 2021. So you wanted to limit that inflation. So to limit the inflation is you have to increase your interest rate. A lot of people were in a variable interest rate. So meaning that your mortgage payment grew up. Think about it for a minute. The average mortgage in Quebec is $396,000. Call it $400,000. Since the rate started to grow, on average, the mortgage payment increased by close to $1,000 a month. Net, $960 per month, very exactly, an average. So you got to find that $1,000 per month. That created the perfect storm. So you're starting to be late on your revolving credit, your credit card, because the last place where you want to be late, mortgage. So you're starting to be late on your credit card payment. You're going to take a second credit card and you're going to make some cash advance to do your minimum payment on your first credit card. You're going to use those cash advance to pay your mortgage at a certain point to pay your grocery. So by and large, this is the perfect storm that's going on. And you know what's frightening is 60% of the Canadian mortgage comes to maturity sometime at the end of 2024. And the peak will be middle end of 2025. So that's 6 out of 10 Canadian that will have to renew their mortgage interest rate fixed, where they were somewhere between 1.9 and 2%. I have no crystal ball, but say they're going to renew at 5.5. The increase will be very important. Once again, we're going to recreate that storm for the mortgage owners.
In your opinion, Patrick, where are we now? And what's your vision in the next 2 years? Where are we heading? Where are we going? And how is this going to impact the average Montrealer, Quebec, or Canadian?
First of all, I want to emphasize I'm not an economist, so I'm a mortgage lender. The only thing that I know is mortgage. We're doing that in 30 years. Now, all that being said, where are we now? I hope that we're in a peak, the mortgage interest rate. According to Bank of Canada, so they're looking at the situation closely. The good news is the interest rates are stable. The 30-year bond rates are stable as well. You got to know that banks are financing themselves on those 30 years bond when they lend for mortgage, for mortgages purposes. So long answer to tell you, I think we're up to a point that everything will stabilize in terms of interest rate. Where are we going to be at in 2 years? Martin, I'd love to tell you. I got to think that at one point things will be back to normal. According to Bank of Canada, they're hoping to be back at 2% in terms of inflation rate sometime end of this year. Will it happen? Question mark. So if it's the case, then in 2 years from now, we'll be back to normal. Now, is a 1.9% fixed 5-year interest rate the normality? The answer is no. That was abnormal. So are we going to be for a fixed interest rate between 4.5 and 5.5? Maybe. I have no crystal ball, but I hope.
A lot of people think that private lending, it's loan sharking. Where Panther Finance could help, and how could you kind of demystify that private lending equal at loan sharking? Obviously, we all know that interest rate will be higher and there's kind of fees attached to that. But I think it's a real need, because if I look all the calls that we're receiving lately, a lot of people are struggling. Where you guys could help, and what is the what kind of loan you're looking at exactly?
Okay, well, first of all, thank you for that question. And so take all the negative point regarding the private mortgage business. Since day one, since the inception of Panther Finance, which is back in October 2012, we decided that we were going to go on the other end of the spectrum. But take it as an investment. If you're investing in a GIC, which your interest and principal will be guaranteed, you'll get a return of, call it 2%, 3%, 5%. It's guaranteed. There's no risk. Now, take that same money invested into a growth fund, stock market fund, where you can get different kinds of return, where your principal is not guaranteed. You can expect a way higher rate of return. It's the risk-reward notion. So now, taking that example down to the private mortgage business, this is exactly what we're doing. So it's a riskier business. So that's why we charge more. That's the explanation. We don't want to take bad property. We don't want to overcharge a client. We just want to be honest towards the risk that we're taking. So now, secondly, regarding your question, so where we can help is, say that a client is about to lose his property. He couldn't make it no more. He neglected his mortgage payment for several months. The bank is just about to repo the property. This is where we can intervene. By repaying the bank, actually, we're doing a mortgage. And we give the time to the client for the client to turn around, reestablish his finance. And then we can reconduct. Actually, it's my mortgage broker that brought in the deal. then reconduct that either straight to an A bank, or he can take it back to a alternative lender, which is in between a bank and a private lender.
What do you see lately in the market? Because I think a lot of people are struggling with debts right now, due probably to high interest rate and inflation. What do you see in the market? You get a lot of calls. You're paying a lot of debts, or what's Panther does lately?
Very good question. So, are we busy? No, we are very busy. Never been that busy in 11 years. So, what do we see? A lot of debt consolidation. So, this is exactly what I was explaining earlier. So, people were using credit card to make their finance happen at the end of the month. But at one point, that strategy has an end. You load it up with your credit card. You load up your line of credit. Now it's time. Either you start neglecting your payment on your mortgage, or it's time to make a big cleanup in your finance. So this is where we can intervene, and this is 9 files out of 10 these days.
So how can people reach Pentor?
Actually, we're mortgage broker centric. So I encourage the clients, if they have a situation where we can help, to get in contact with any mortgage broker in Quebec, asked to deal with Pentor Finance, and this is the way we can treat the file.
To learn more about Pentor Finance, you can visit their website, pentorfinance.com. Patrick Lalonde, Business Development Manager at Pentor Finance. Thank you so much for your time, Patrick. Really appreciate your insight on this.
Under One Roof MTL, hosted by Robyn Flynn, featuring mortgage brokers Fred and Martin and real estate expert LJ Aguinaga. Presented by Fred and Martin Mortgages and LJ Realties. This is the Mortgage Minute.
How does the Bank of Canada rate affect your mortgage? This is the Mortgage Minute. There are 2 types of mortgages, variable rate mortgages and fixed rate mortgages. If you have a variable rate, changes in the bank rate affect your payments right away. If the rate goes up or down, your mortgage payments will too. Fixed rate mortgages, your payments don't change even if the bank rate does. Only when it's time to renew your mortgage will your fixed rate go up or down. Why people choose either or. Variable rate, if the interest rates go down, you could pay less. If the interest rates go up, you could pay more. You need to be comfortable with these types of fluctuations. Fixed rate, your payments are the same every month, which makes it easier to plan your budget. Case in point, during the term of your mortgage, you won't have to pay more even if rates go up. Fixed rates give you stability. This has been your Mortgage Minute.
This is Under One Roof MTL on CJD 800. I'm Robyn Flynn. That was Martin Spalding from Fred and Martin Mortgages.
That was good, Martin.
Thank you.
Yeah, all the guys. He's blushing now. Very nice, very nice. LJ Aguinaga of LJ Realties. Well, since we're on the topic of variable and fixed rate mortgages, what do we think right now about variable and fixed rate? I'm on a variable. I spoke about that last week. It's been a little rock and roll for me the last year, but if you are buying a property right now or your mortgage is up for renewal, should you be going with a variable or a fixed rate?
It depends on your mindset, right? So if you really want to know on a monthly basis how much you're going to pay, lock into a fix. But if you want to hedge what the experts and the economists are saying, then go variable and lock in when you hit your sweet spot. Because we think that mortgage rates are going to go down over the next year, and it's much easier to lock in from a variable to a fix than going from fixed to variable, because if you go fixed to variable, you actually have to break your fixed mortgage to go to a variable rate mortgage.
But how much do we trust these experts? Because I feel like 6 months ago, they were telling me like Q4 2023, the rates are going to come down. No. Okay, Q1 2024, rates are going to start coming down. Okay, maybe not. Maybe summer, maybe fall. I feel like it just keeps getting pushed and pushed and pushed, and I'm the one who's paying more every month.
Well, what I could tell you, Robyn, is I was reading a nice article from Benjamin Tall, the chief deputy economist of CIBC, and he was basically saying, and he was right, I think so, because obviously nobody could really predict what's going to happen, but there's a lot of indicator out there. But he says as soon as the Fed and the Bank of Canada feel that we're finished with the inflation, we're going to have a rate cut. and it makes a lot of sense. He actually was saying that the overnight rate could easily goes from 5% to 2.75 in the next year and a half, which is that's mean good time for people who carry variable rates. And I was kind of it's hard to predict, but again, if you try to read between the line and you go out there and educate yourself about what's going on in the economy, I think a variable rate, it's not a gamble, it's an educated risk.
I would say that it really depends on your situation and your risk tolerance. You can also take a 3-year term. We don't have to sign a closed 5-year. You have different options available to you as well. Are you planning on purchasing the home, doing some renovations, and then you want to refinance out of that? So let's take variable up front and then lock in a fixed rate, especially with probably lower fixed rates in a little bit. Or are we happy with where we're at right now? We really want that tranquillité d'esprit and just don't want to think about it, if you will. And we're okay with making this fixed payment throughout that period and don't want to ride any more roller coasters.
Yeah, that's kind of how I'm feeling right now. I'm so stressed. Every month when your payments are changing constantly, if you're just like the regular everyday person, like I consider myself, it's a stressful situation, you know?
Are you alluding to the other article that came online this week about the forever mortgage?
Yeah, I'm really grateful at least that I'm not stuck in one of those forever mortgages, but basically these are the fixed payment variable loans, right? So you're on a variable interest rate, but your fixed payment every month remains the same, but the amount you're paying towards your principal is what changes. And some people aren't even paying any of their principal anymore. They're only paying interest, right?
So I got my mortgage statement this week, like most of you did. And on one of my investment properties, even though I'd made $25,000 worth of payments in 2023, the mortgage balance is actually $3,000 higher than it ended the year at.
Wow.
Luckily, it's an investment. The interest is entirely tax deductible. So all in all, it's okay. But in a single, like in my principal residence situation, I would have almost lost it if this was the reality.
Seriously. And then this is happening to people, though.
You hit a trigger, right? So when there's not enough money just to even cover the interest. And what the article alluded to is that there's somebody that has now a 90-year mortgage because the amortization period extends when there's not enough money to pay only the interest. And so the article is saying that this person is now in a forever mortgage because if the person is 30, 40 years old and now they've got a 90-year mortgage in front of them, they'll never pay off the mortgage.
And that's why if you decide to go variable, I think you should be aware and having the budget to afford that fluctuation, because if you don't want a situation like that happen again, if you're really on a tight budget, I would say don't go for variable rate. Keep with the fixed rate. But again, if you want to hedge the market right now, I think it's a good solution to go variable.
Well, as you know, when you're applying for a mortgage, there's a thing called the stress test, right? So you should be stress testing yourself when you're signing up for a variable mortgage. So if interest rates go up by 2, 3, 4, 5, 6%, can your income absorb those increases? If the answer is no, then maybe you should lock in with a fixed rate.
Well, then what you're going to end up having to do probably is cancel Disney Plus and Netflix and Amazon Prime.
But you should always be going through your credit card statements because most of the time you just keep paying things.
Yep.
It's like storage, right?
Yep.
I paid storage for 5 years. I had no idea what was in our storage unit, but we just kept paying on a monthly basis. Finally, I went back there and I go, what am I storing? And the value that I paid or the money I paid for storage was more than the actual value of the stuff that I was storing. And finally, I said to my wife, we're liquidating. We're getting rid of everything. And off to Renaissance it all went.
Yeah, those recurring charges will get you. I was looking recently because Apple automatically will charge you. And you don't notice it because it's like $1.99 a month. You ignore it. I've been paying for this app I used when my daughter was born to track like breastfeeding. I'm like, why am I paying for this? She's 2. Anyway, I canceled it. But yeah, definitely be going through your statements and what are you paying for every month?
Oh, storage is a money pit.
Oh, definitely.
I think you touched on something important, though. In the next year to 2, we're going to have to start seeing a lot of people making tough decisions based on quality of life. A lot of people took these mortgages at 2.5%, maybe even below that. And when it comes time to renew in the next 12 to 24 months, are people going to keep the home and really just constrain their quality of life? Or are people going to start choosing to sell their properties to get into something smaller to maintain that quality of life that they've had over the last couple of years?
Oh, because you don't want to be house poor, right?
That's just it.
And just to add to that, there was a survey from a LJ firm stating that 58% of the Canadian are worried about their mortgage renewal. 58%, it's a lot. and it's mainly due to high interest rate. And again, they've been asked, what are you going to do? Are you to transfer your mortgage at high interest rate? What's going to happen in your budget? And most of them were saying, well, we're going to first start saving for her mortgage, cutting her spending, and obviously working on a budget. And it's probably the right thing to do. But I think the good news is, don't be afraid. I think the high interest rate was due to inflation, and we have some great time during COVID when the interest rate was 1.5, 2%. But we're not going to go back to that. But I think it's going to stabilize somewhere at the end of 2024, beginning of 2025. It might go down a little bit. Like it's going to give a bit of release to the Canadian.
Yeah, it's hard to save money when everything costs more, right? You've been to a grocery store lately.
The berries.
Oh my goodness.
Berries.
If you have children under the age of 5, your berry budget is out of control.
Under One Roof MTL, hosted by Robyn Flynn, featuring mortgage brokers Fred and Martin and real estate expert LJ Aguinaga. Presented by Fred and Martin Mortgages and LJ Realties.
Speaking of LJ Realties, LJ, what is our property of the week this week?
This week, I have a really cool renovated semi-commercial property in the Plateau. It's 807 to 809 Rachel Street, and it's located next to some of the funkiest poutines that we have here in Montreal at La Banquise. You also have La Poule Mouillée right next to it. But even better, we have the beautiful La Fontaine Park literally 150 meters away. Right now, it's got a huge ice skating area. We have the cross-country skiing, so it doesn't matter what you're into, you'll have it near you at this property. The upper unit features 4 bedrooms on 2 floors, and the ground floor is a commercial unit with a full basement as well. So if you want more information, check it out on our website.
Wow. I mean, you said La Banquise, and now all I'm thinking about is poutine.
Yeah, have you noticed that every time that LJ talks about a featured property, there's a reference to food?
Mm-hmm.
Last week was cookies. This week it's poutine.
Well, he's a man after my own heart.
I mean, we all have to eat.
We got to eat.
Exactly. Everybody has to eat. LJ Realties is where you want to go if you want to check it out. That is LJ Aguinaga, Martin Spalding, and Fred Pichette of Fred and Martin Mortgages. And I'm Robyn Flynn. You're listening to Under One Roof MTL on CJAD 800. We teed up our trivia question off the top of the show, and I think it's finally time to give the answer. The question is, what is a collateral charge mortgage? And even though I have the answer right in front of me, I want you to explain it to me, Fred, Martin, one of you. You guys are the mortgage experts, because I don't think I fully understand.
I'm going to put pressure on Fred because I learned this from Fred.
Okay.
Because I've listened to him explain it to our clients, and a lot of clients don't realize that their mortgage has a collateral charge to it, which makes it very difficult for them to transfer from one lender to another.
Okay. Well,
basically is, let's say you're taking a loan from a bank at $400,000. Actually, you do have a debt of $400,000 on your property, but most of lender will take a collateral charge for 125% of the value of the property. Why? They always say, just in case you need more money down the road later on, hey guys, come to see us. You don't have to go see a notary again. We're going to have money available for you as long as you qualify. And that's a collateral charge, which is some, and also if you have a line of credit attached to the property, a secure line of credit, we call that a collateral charge because you have access to extra equity on your property. Again, is it the right thing to do? Sometimes yes, but most of the time, no. If I borrow $400, and I don't have a line of credit, why you're taking an extra security on my property? Well, most of the time when the lender or bank does that is to force you to stay with them at renewal, because now I'm a bit technical, but the deed of loan that you sign in front of a notary, which is the instruction from the bank, will not allow you to transfer that deed when your mortgage comes to renewal, transfer that deed of loan to another lender at no cost. Why bank does that? Obviously, they want to keep you under their roof.
That's Fred Pichette of Fred and Martin Mortgages. Martin, did you want to add something to that?
I always believe in reading the fine print. Yeah, there's always a list of conditions, and most people skip over them and they sign it on the dotted line. Read the conditions.
You can't just scroll like on your phone and just
No,
scroll.
no,
I
no,
accept,
no,
and you
no.
never read a single one. Okay.
No, this is the biggest investment you're probably going to make in your life.
Yep.
And you blindly sign on the dotted line.
Yeah.
And just to add to that, people look more at the discount at the grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
They spend an hour to find where's that the biggest discount this week, then reading what they sign, especially for their mortgage.
Part of that is the fact that these deeds of loan are 50 to 60 pages long sometimes, and they're in difficult vocabulary.
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing to not want to read it, and it's another thing to just not understand it, and that definitely becomes part of the problem here. The grocery store, you can understand that 10-15% discount.
Yeah, it's a little bit easier to understand in layman's terms.
You mean a sentence that starts on page 1 and ends on page 2?
Yeah, one sentence, a run-on sentence.
Exactly.
Fred, you mentioned lines of credit. We actually got a text at 514-800 asking about that. It says, hello, I'm a senior. I still work 30 hours a week. I also collect my government pension, which is nothing in these times. I own a $500,000 home, but I owe $23,000 on a line of credit. I don't want to sell my house, but I am thinking about taking a reverse mortgage. I want to get rid of my line of credit. It's very expensive. What do you think I should do?
I think it's a great question, by the way, and I deal with that, I think, every week with seniors, and maybe it's me, but I really like to help people. I would say we do have to look at his file, but it could be a very good solution because a lot of people think a reverse mortgage is something that's scary, that they're going to take over your property, that cost a lot of money. But sometimes if you run out of your savings, you had a bit of debt, and sadly, he's right. If you work on the government pension at $15,000 a year, you're not going to go that far. In fact, that debt of $23,000 will never be paid. Yeah. Like, it could be something that if you reach out to us that we could really look at, and I think it could be a good fit. But again, without seeing any documents and speaking to him, but I think I use reverse mortgage a lot in the past, and what I could say, all of my clients are very, very happy to have that. It gives them a kind of release.
So if you want to find out more, maybe you should get in touch with Fred Pichette. fredandmartin.com is the website if you want to get in touch with them.
And I think it'd be a great topic for one of our shows to talk about reverse mortgages.
Absolutely.
Let's face it, the Canadian population is getting older, and a lot of people are going to be confronted. They've got a lot of equity in their house, but they don't have a lot of income. So how can they use the income or the equity in their house to maintain their standard of living?
Yeah, super important. Let's quickly run through what we learned this week. I love to recap at the end. Maybe that's because I have a background in education. You always want to recap at the end. So what we learned this week, do your due diligence. Just because Mike Holmes says it's a good idea doesn't mean that you can always trust that. Always have your property inspected before you purchase. Be careful who you choose as your real estate broker. You want to do your due diligence, do your homework, ask for reviews, look for reviews on Google, on their website. Private lenders, also an option for you at some point. You can check out penterfinance.com if you're curious. Next week, by the way, we are going to have our Super Bowl picks. And I am very, very excited. I have a feeling we're going to be kind of split on this. So I think, we're going to fisticuffs maybe emerging when we get to that next week. You're listening to Under One Roof MTL. How can people get in touch with you? I mentioned fredandmartin.com as the website for Fred and Martin. Is that the best way for people to reach you?
Best way to go is Fred and Martin, fredandmartin.com. Sorry. All the information is on the website.
Excellent. LJ Aguinaga from LJ Realties. How can people get in touch with you?
My website, ljrealties.com, or you can also find me on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. My handle is LJ Aguinaga on all the platforms. For more information on our listings and my real estate team, you can also check out LJ Realties.
Yeah, you definitely want to follow LJ on Instagram. His reels are on fire. The information provided there is really solid. I have to say, I'm a big fan of your work on Instagram.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I got to say too, LJ, you're great on TikTok and all,
exactly.
all the platform. You're amazing. You're doing a great job.
And you can follow Under One Roof MTL as well. We're on Instagram and Facebook. So if you want to get some more information, we do podcast the show after. It'll be up a little bit later. So if you missed the beginning, you can find us on all of the major streaming platforms, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts, you can find us. Guys, that's it for show number 2, pretty much. We're wrapping it up here. Any final thoughts before we hand it off to news?
Well, don't forget to go eat a poutine near the LG property.
Yeah, that's where I'm going after the show wraps up. My name is Robyn Flynn. This has been Under One Roof MTL. That's LJ Aguinaga of LJ Realties, Fred Pichette and Martin Spalding from Fred and Martin Mortgages. We'll be back with you next week at noon, right after the CJD 800 Trivia Show. Have a great afternoon.